Oh, good. Well, at least it's getting better.
Yeah.
Improvement is good.
I go, I can get my master's of public administration and then the year afterwards apply for town manager. No.
Oh.
Well, you have to wait a year before.
So I found those. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, the time is 4:32 and we will start the work session. The first item on the agenda is financial audit review. I'll turn that over to Heather. No.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I know we've all been waiting for this day because this is a really exciting one for me. My name is Heather Pizzella. I'm the interim finance director, and in your packet this evening is a summary of our audited financial statements as well as our audited financial statements. So this is exciting for us number nerds to get through this process and then on to budgeting. So kind of a quick turnaround. At a high level, I'm going to run you through the summary and then some of the pages of the audit so you can familiarize yourself with some of the data in the audit and just kind of know where things are if you're asked questions in the community or you're just curious and want to take a closer look at some of our numbers. On July 1st, I emailed all of you the required auditor communication letter. That comes to you guys separately. So that is a letter from our auditor to you. It's not provided in any of our packets or anything of that nature, but it's a required communication and it outlines our audit process, significant accounting policies, and the results of the audit. And then also there's a couple pages of the adjusting journal entries. So you can see the adjustments that were made to their end of year financials. Most of them are relate to depreciation, but there are a couple adjusting entries in there as well this year. Just moving a couple things around and getting them where they were supposed to be in our financials. So I'd like to run you through the financial statements and familiarize you with those pages. I'm going to highlight a little bit of the management discussion and analysis, and then I'll open up to questions. Unless you guys want to ask some questions as we go, please feel free. So this is our audited financial statement report, and on page 1, Jesse, if you don't mind scrolling through for me, that'd be great. Thank you. On page 1 is our independent auditors report. And so you will note that the 2025 financial statements have a unmodified opinion, which means it's a clean opinion. The 2025 financial statements are fairly presented in all material aspects in accordance with generally accepted audit accounting practice principles, which is GAAP for short. There's no material misstatements or material weaknesses affecting the fair presentation of the financial statements identified. So that's great news. It's what we thought would happen. We run a pretty clean GL and have good internal controls, and I'd like to keep it that way. So in the management and discussion and analysis, it's Roman numerals in the report, but for layman's terms, it's just pages 1 through 12. It's 12 pages. And in that, in the MDMA, we outline specifics in the financials on performance. So we call out some specific numbers, percentages, so you can see some of the changes year over year in our financial statements. And we did make one edit to page 8 on the capital fund information. And I'll come back to this section later in the report. So on page 8, so it's a little bit further down. Right here, we edited the capital improvement fund when it was initially sent out, and this is on our website and stuff too. Our fund balance change actually was $455,000. Initially, when we sent it, it was Z0, which we made that change. So that's all cleaned up for presentation and so that we have the correct numbers. So the basic financial statements, we have 2 types of activities. We have governmental funds, which include our general fund, capital fund, street fund, and our special revenue funds, which include DURA, housing, parking, conservation trust, and our cemetery fund. And then our business type funds are water and sewer, and those are enterprise funds. And so we only have 2 enterprise funds. Well, there's 4 technically with water plant investment fund, sewer plant investment fund. But those are our business activity funds that will run you through some of the financials. And all of these are on page 4 in the financial statements. And I would call out to you that Dura is actually a governmental fund because its funding mechanism is a tax increment financing. So it is funded by a tax source, which is considered a governmental fund. And then also the town of Dillon is the governing body for Dura. So our net position overall for 2025 increased by $5.5 million. You're going to hear me say this number a few times throughout this presentation, so bear with me if it gets repeated. And our governmental activities increased by $4.2 million this year, and our business type activities increased by $1.3 million this year, which reflects positive operating results in the water and sewer enterprise funds. So on pages 6 through 9 are our governmental fund financial statements, and they're reported as major funds and then the non-major funds that I mentioned before. And so these are going to include our balance sheet, and that is on page 6. And I know there was a question last year about what is in that intergovernmental receivable amount. And those are our receivables, mostly our tax receivables that we'll receive at the beginning of this year for prior years. So they get accrued back in our financial statements. And we have a large reconciliation that we do for that intergovernmental receivable every year. And the notes receivable came up last year as well. And those are all of our down payment assistant loans. So just wanted to call out those just so we are all on the same page about those. Next through the pages 6 through 9 is our reconciliation of our balance sheet to our net position, our statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance, and then our reconciliation to statement activities. The non-major funds are much later in the report, so we'll cover those a little bit further on so we don't scroll back and forth because it is about 58 pages total. Next up on pages 10 through 12 are our enterprise funds. And these are our business type activities, and you'll see our statement and net position. So that change of the $1.3 million is on these pages, so you can see that. Our statement of revenue and expenses, changes in fund and net position, statement of cash flows. And then I would just call out that the Marina Fund used to be an enterprise fund, but that was rolled into the general fund in 2023, so that if the Marina Fund needs more than 10% of its revenues for capital, the general fund can help true up that difference. So that was one of the reasons we moved that back over in 2023. On page 13 is our fiduciary fund. So this is the Summit County Telecommunications Consortium. We call it SCTC for short. And we are the fiduciary. We administer their financial statements as well as their budget, and the employees for SCTC are employed through us, even though there is a governing board that does that. So we are responsible for including this in our financial statements, and this is that statement of assets and liabilities as of December 31st. The notes to financials are all through pages 14 through 40. These include our town's significant accounting policies. They outline our cash and investments. On pages 25 and 26, you'll see all of our capital assets. And you'll also see our reconciliation of our investment in the Joint Sewer Authority, which we call JSA for short. Our debt schedules are on note 6, and those are included on pages 27 through 31. I would call out that we do receive a fair amount of questions about debt. So this is a great resource to refer to on where our debt schedules are, and it breaks it down into the years to come. And you will note that we don't have a big balloon payment coming at some point. So this is a good place to look at that information and just familiarize yourselves. And if constituents have more questions about debt, this is a great place to look. Also in the notes to financial statements, we include information about our retirement provided to our town employees, along with risk management, and then any commitments and contingencies are all in these notes to financials. On pages 41 through 56 are our RSIs, which stands for Required Supplemental Information. And we have a lot of information from the FPPA, the Fire and Police Pension Association, that we're required to report in our audit. So that's in here. This year, we are meeting our GASB requirements for GASB 34 for 2025, which include our budget to actual comparisons for all of our funds. And so those are included this year, and you can see where our budget was, our amended budgets, and then where we landed for end of 2025 and any differences. The last pages, I'll let Jesse catch up for a second. There's a lot of information here. If we want to just go all the way down to 57. This is our state compliance section. So this is our highway users and tax report for the state of Colorado. And we are required to report this and file this report by June 30th. So we have already filed this report. And this is where we receive money from the state to fund our highways. And we're required to submit this annually, this reconciliation. So next steps for our audit include by July 31st, we need to submit this report to DOLA, so the Department of Labor and Local Affairs. And then we're also required to submit this to MSRB, which is our Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board. And that is for our bond compliance. Any questions so far? Do you guys, or do you want to wait till the end?
Yeah, I'll just wait till the end.
Okay.
I have just a couple.
Okay.
Yeah.
So next, I just wanted to go back to the management discussion and analysis and just kind of highlight a few performance items from the 2025 audit. So I'd like to call out that our total fund picture for the year, our assets are over liabilities by $64.1 million. And this ties to page 4 of the audit report. So all the way back at the beginning. And of this amount, 18.8 million is unrestricted. And so this can be used for ongoing obligations to our citizens and creditors. Our net position increased for all government activities by 5.5 million. That's the number I mentioned to you guys at the beginning of the presentation. And this was due mostly to some conservative budgeting for 2025, and then also not spending every dollar in the budget, I would say. And then at the end of 2025, our governmental activities ended at 47.1 million, which is an increase of 4.2 million from last year. And then our unrestricted fund balance for the general fund was 5.3 million, and this is 28.27 of the general fund expenditures. As far as governmental activities go, I want to give you guys just a quick high level of some revenues and expenses. So 41.3% of our general fund revenue comes from sales tax, and then 51.1% of total governmental fund revenues is from sales tax. So we do receive a lot of money from sales tax, and it does provide a significant amount for the general fund. Our expenses for total government activities are down 12.05% from 2025. And then our general fund expenses decreased 15.21%. And that includes, general government includes our town council, administration, events, marketing, and communications. So we did have just a little bit lower expenses last year. And then our core services, which include public safety, public works, and culture and rec, make up about 29.67% of our expenses. Jim Hinkle is going to be here at our regular meeting tonight. He is our auditor, and he's going to be presenting the full financial statements for you and can answer more questions then, but I'm happy to answer what questions you guys have at this point.
Barb?
Shannon might have some too, but just on your sections, I'll call it, versus Jim's sections. I had a couple questions on so on page, let's just start with page 6, VI. I should say Roman numeral page 6.
You know, I wondered about how to say that myself today, so I wanted to
Right.
call out Roman numerals.
There we go. I know that the public safety expenses kind of jockeyed around. So in the budget, this amount here, I just wanted to point out, particularly because we're kind of pointing it out to the public now, is that in the budget, there was the estimation was I was going to say too high. And so the public expenses increased 28.21%, and in the budget, we had them increasing by over 56%. And so we might need a note in there. I don't know if that's something we can do at this point, but I just wanted to point out that that has had some more reconciliation done on it. So, but I think there might need to be a note in there because it doesn't match the budget, the 25 budget. Let's see. And actually the 26 budget had that higher number in there as well. So we might just need to clarify is what I'm trying to say. You fixed that one, which I thought was a typo, the 0 to the 455. Thank you for doing that. There was just going forward, and I know this is a goal, just to make sure that the capital fund in the finance director's report meets the audit numbers. It was they don't match at the moment from the April from.
Yeah, so I have looked at May and it does tie out
Okay.
now, so we are good
Okay,
there.
so you guys got that. And what's the other one was, I had a couple questions on in the narrative. So in the Roman numeral section, and I know it's from the fact that the marina got changed and, but it jumps around just a hair, and the marina is now in the general fund. And then there's a little bit of confusion about where concerts land. So do they land in general or are they under culture and recreation? And I wasn't quite sure.
In the audit report, events, town concerts is in general government.
Okay,
Culture and rec is mostly marina and our rec department.
okay, so culture and rec has the marina. Yeah, because it's several million. So I was wondering, but it's not the same as concerts. So I just wondered. Okay, so thank you. That just might need to be, I just couldn't figure it out when I was reading through it.
Yeah, so culture and rec is marina, recreation, and our building and parks. And then the
Okay.
general government is marketing, events, administration.
Okay, and that might need, marina kind of bounces around, so maybe it needs just some clarification at some point. I mean, I could figure out, I could tell you, I can email you the exact sentences that are kind of funky if you want me to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I just wanted to point that out too, because there's some big numbers in culture and rec. So just trying to, but it isn't as big as concerts. So I just wanted to point that out. And that was it. Otherwise, those were my main questions or concerns.
Thank you.
Other council members, questions? I don't have any questions.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
you. This was a huge.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
I'm up here next. Should I just stay? Do you guys want to go?
Yes. So we'll move on to item 2, Summit County Habitat for Humanity funding discussion.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Heather Pizzella, and in your packet tonight is a supplemental appropriation for the Housing 5A Fund. And the appropriation is for $500,000 to assist with the funding the Soda Creek Workforce Housing Project. We bring this forward. I wanted to give you some information on our audited fund balance for housing so that you know where we're at. So at the beginning of the year, with our audited fund numbers, housing is at $6,279,000. Once we approve this supplemental appropriation and have some amendments coming to our budget on the 21st, fund balance at the end of the year will be at $5.2 million. So I just wanted to give you a little information that including this 500K, housing would end at $5.2 million for the year. So this project was brought to council, I think, on November 18th, 2025. Initially, Habitat for Humanity came and presented to all of you about this project. It is I believe, 3-building, 5-unit project. So they're duplexes, and the third duplex, so there's 2 duplexes, and then the third one has storage attached to it. And so Summit Habitat for Humanity initially looked for 3 partners. And I think council at the time in December wanted to ensure that there were 2 more partners in order to proceed with our $500,000 in funding, which they have come to the table with those additional partners. And so this supplemental appropriation would be you guys approving our portion of the 500K, which at that time, they were looking for $1.5 million total for the project. And I think the contingency, they had started building this project in 2023, and it stalled a little bit because they needed to sell some units over in Fairplay to get the funding to then start building over here. And so, do you guys have any questions? Did I miss anything?
In the regular meeting, there's going to be a resolution for your approval for this supplemental. Owen Dodd will be here in the regular meeting to give you an update on the project and where they're at and who the partners are. The one update I have for you is that so now that we know that there are partners that people have pitched in, and we wanted to make sure that the funds that we had committed, that we designated and held those for when the project starts. The next piece of this will be an agreement on how the funds will be used, where they will be transferred to, so on and so forth. And the county is going to take the lead on putting that agreement together with all of the participants' name on it. So at some point when they're ready, we'll bring that agreement in front of you so you can look at the details and the restrictions and how the money's going to be used, so on and so forth. So that will come at a later date.
And all the players are all lined up for the rest.
Yeah, I believe
They are,
Mhm.
yeah.
Who are the other players?
Oh,
It was in the paper, so it was Keystone and the county.
Summit County, Keystone, Dillon. Hang on. Sorry. Come on, there it is. Give me just a second to find that. Let me go to the latest email. Stand by. Is a draft agreement for certain president will encompass SHFH, Dillon, Keystone, and the county all in the agreement.
So Summit County Housing Authority?
Yep.
Okay. And I just had a question. I don't remember if did we put any conditions on anything or
We have
besides the,
the only condition that I was the director of public works at the time. But if I remember correctly, the only condition that you discussed was that you're willing to contribute to the project as long as these other partners join. Now, when the county is done drafting the agreement, you'll have another opportunity if you have some specific conditions. We could, and I'm going to get a draft of that, and we can maybe talk about that, and we can negotiate with our attorney and figure out if you have some specific requirements, we can try to address that in that agreement.
thanks.
I think it was all straightforward
Okay.
from the start, so.
It sounds like a great project and a
Yeah.
great location.
Yeah.
So I live in that neighborhood, and it's a perfect spot for this project. I did ask, since we're contributing money to the project, does that do anything for us in terms of, we obviously, we might have some people in our community who have a need or something like that. Does that do anything for us? And the answer is no. In order to get on the list for that project, Habitat for Humanity has a policy protocol that they follow for that. So, any of our citizens or whatnot could certainly look into that, get on the list and whatnot. But I think it's still great that we're contributing to really a neat project in the county, in the community. I think this is great.
Yeah, I think the only thing I mentioned was maybe Habitat could take a look at that land holding that's on Little Beaver Trail. Have them, that should be on the record back then. I'd just have them take a look at it for possibilities
Okay.
is what I think we put in there. Since we're partnering with them for this, perhaps there is could be a future partnership. But it's conceptual. There's nothing heavy to it.
So like we said, you will, now's a great time to ask questions. We will be presenting the resolution at the regular meeting for your approval.
I'm all clear with it.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 3 with Chief Osborne, Dillon Keystone Police Department, State of the Department Report, June 1st, 25 to May 31st, 26.
Good afternoon. So in your packet, I provided a real basic overview of the first year of the Dillon Keystone Police Department. Pretty high level look of what we did in the first year, kind of what it looked like, and where we look to go in the future. So, in speaking with Scott, one thing I wanted to do is get that in the packet and then actually have some time for questions and discussion, which we don't do a lot. So it's one thing I'm going to try and do more of in the next year with both councils. Just getting a little more face time, not hurried, not rushed. So making sure everybody's questions get answered and needs get met. And with that, I would open it up for any questions, considering what the report, and like I said, it's pretty high level. But I know that there's some specific questions that we can get answered today.
So it looked like on page 6, there are 4 vacancies, 3 for officer and 1 for the CSO. And so that almost represents about 50% of your force. So how is not having that, is that impacting,
Yeah.
workloads?
Yeah, absolutely. It impacts us. Clearly the incredible loss of our organization did open the CSO position, which we're currently posting for. So that was filled. We have a new employee starting August 3rd. And unfortunately, we're losing an employee on the 11th. So obviously, one of our biggest priorities is always going to be finding the right people and filling these open spots. But anytime that there's any kind of opening to that, it really impacts what our staff can do as far as flexibility, training, time off. It does affect that. So that's going to be one of our highest priorities to address.
And if you move to page 8, that number of 4 expands to 8, which is almost 50% of the force. And so there's a real need to expand by 50%.
Yep.
Yeah, I just had some questions on the need to expand, please. I would just want you to, I said it's a big lift. So how does it happen?
In
To
what
expand.
context?
To expand. So it's,
To expand from a personnel standpoint?
Yeah.
Or just organizational standpoint?
I was thinking from a personnel because, we're working to fill, current vacancies and then we want to expand.
Yeah,
So,
I think we got to put the cart where it's necessary, right? And the Keystone Council brought up the same thing of, filling the spots that we have open currently. When you look into the chart conceptually, those aren't going to be asked for if we can't fill the spots that we have now. Clearly, that's going to be one of our biggest priorities. But looking into the future and growth rates and just how much work needs to happen, I think increasing our number of staff just to where we need to be, I think is kind of the normal piece. As we grow and like I pointed out in the report, there's one specialized person that would be in there being expansion of the canine. But that depends on a lot. That depends on if we can actually find the right people to fill those slots. It depends on the budget. Quite frankly, to get to where we're whole, we're obviously budgeted at that already. And that's going to be a year to year. That's going to be one of our biggest challenges, quite frankly, in the next forever, actually in the mountains, especially in law enforcement. It's going to continue to be the biggest priority too, is how do we attract the right people that want to come work here? Because it's a very unique place to work. People want to be here. They have to work hard to be here as well. So it's
So
gonna be a challenge.
are we always going to be playing catch up with growth happening in Keystone and the projects happening here?
I'd like to say no, but it really depends. I mean, if we have continued to have really low attrition rates, I would say no. If we can't stay competitive, then I would say yes. Josh, I think you bring up a good point too, is, what do the growth rates look like? Right? Dillon's a good example of projects that are gonna go, not go. What does the density look like? What do the needs look like? Some things get planned out, don't materialize. So there definitely is analysis that goes on almost quarterly of what that looks like. Bringing like a 5-star hotel like Kindred, right, adds significant amount of people. But how does that affect our call load? So all of that stuff needs to get taken into account. And there's some timing involved with that as well. But if we stay competitive and keep our employees, that number will get lower.
In the other towns that are on a faster growth pace than us, are they affecting our call rates? And like Silverthorne, a lot of residential growth in their corridor. Does that have an
Are they
impact?
affecting our call load?
Yeah.
Not necessarily, actually. Silverthorne has added staff to their police department. And they've done really well in the last year of adding additional staff. So our backups and things like that aren't as drastic as they were as short as 2 years ago.
Okay.
The county, we still have a considerable amount of backup work and things like that. Especially with Swan Mountain closed and just some of the other issues in the county this year. So that's been fairly stable as far as backup work goes, but our call load did increase. But it's very much in line with where we thought it was going to be, from a percentage standpoint, and looking into the future, what does that look like? Because a lot of factors, affect that. I will say it's been a unique summer, especially with Swan Mountain being closed. There is considerably more traffic coming across the dam road, the interstate, and obviously the corridor is busy, but this winter, the numbers don't necessarily reflect how bad the winter was, as far as from the recreation perspective, because there was still a lot of people here, but Obviously, our numbers did not drop off.
I'd open it up for other council people to speak also.
You know, if the taking on Keystone, hurt the morale of the department or made the job, change the dynamic of the job to make it less attractive? Is that why we seem to be,
I think that it definitely had an effect. You know, we dealt with a lot of issues this year, some that we anticipated, some that we did not. For example, we had anticipated being on e-citations and part of a bigger kind of upgrade in the communication center. That didn't happen, so that makes it harder on our officers. I think setting up the municipal court was a lot more complicated than we thought in the beginning, so that took a lot longer to complete. You know, so those two factors alone absolutely had an effect on our staff. You know, some days are really good, some days are really bad. It depends on what's going on. As far as our officers responding to calls of that, the majority of our officers, you know, like being able to cover a wider area. You know, we have different calls. Most of our officers have enjoyed that, but I think our biggest problem that we had over the year is more administrative and getting the processes and stuff in place. One of the things that has been very fascinating to watch is how a town actually develops its ordinances, what that looks like, and trying to have a positive influence that it actually works well for our officers. For example, passing ordinances that are unenforceable is really hard, or in Dillon's standpoint, we have a lot of ordinances that are very outdated or unenforceable. All of that has an effect on just day-to-day operations as officers go through their day, and the complexity adds to that. You know, I would point out that we've had 3 very critical incidents, one which is still going on. Anytime that we have an event of the magnitude that we have, has an effect on the organization. No matter how you look at it, there is a lot of stress induced, especially with obviously the in custody death case that is still going on. So overall, morale has been up and down. I mean, there's, like I said, really good days, really bad days. But I will say that we're turning a corner in certain things that I think will have a very positive effect on the majority of our staff. You know, one thing that has been going on forever, you know, is trying to get a car built. Something as simple as that, right? We have cars in our business. But just steps that we've had to take to actually finish projects on that, that has had a negative effect on our staff. So obviously we're looking at, we've already done other things to increase that efficiency to get things that we need that actually work. You know, bringing on an IT support person of that, because we have so much tech. Tech's really great when it works. If it doesn't work, it's very frustrating. And I know that our staff has really dealt with a lot of change. And I think the majority of staff has done really well in dealing with a lot of change really quickly. You know, and going back to, we're always changing in our field. But like a project that's going on with the comm center being the records management system, the CAD update, stuff that we'd already anticipated to be well on their way to make our officers' lives easier, more efficient, more safe. Just the time allotment for that has been really hard, where we have a lot of our contracts actually that we purposely timed in conjunction with that project, which now we're going to put on hold or I'll have to come back to you for contract extensions and things like that where, not everything's in our control, but all of that stuff adds up. The one thing that I would say, talking about what didn't go as well, the administrative portion, there are worth some things that actually got corrected this year that I think make it, better for our staff, one of which I would commend Jesse and her staff of, concerts, events. What does that look like timing wise? Because it's no secret in the summertime, it's very busy here. And I know, like I said, if we're able to staff and do certain things, it's a lot more manageable than assigning people certain things to do outside of their normal job scope. So I appreciate things like that because that has made things a little better, which we're always looking at because, keeping the workload in perspective and trying to have balance of, personal lives and not, and what that looks like is going to continue to be very important. So we look at a lot of those things, how to do that. I will tell you that our organization as a whole learned a lot this year. Some good, some bad. So I know if we can take what we have learned and moved into the future, we're going to be better. But it's been a hard year.
Thanks.
So, I know we've talked before, under the radar stuff that might, we're not aware of as a council that might help us make better decisions with regards to development decisions coming up or just how the core functions the way it sits. Is there any understanding that would help us see those things clearer for the council?
I don't think I understand your question.
Okay, so there's a lot of stuff that the police department is privy to that we're not. And understanding some of the dynamics of what goes on that we don't see, that might help us make better decisions as a council.
What would be an example of that, Josh?
You discussed in the past the Payne building and some situations with it, and just the underground dynamics of our position
Like
of
basic infrastructure and how that relates to.
yeah, and our dynamics where we're a halfway point between Chicago and California, and things that go on here that maybe we're not privy to, that if we could make better decisions might help make your job easier with that sort of stuff.
I don't think any decision that the council makes is going to be an easy decision. At
Okay.
least it sure hasn't been the last couple of years.
But if we understand more, we can,
Yeah, I mean,
it's an odd question I'm asking.
yeah, no. It's, I've sat in council meetings for quite a while and the focus really has been on, the main focus obviously has been revitalization of the downtown core. What is that? It means so much to so many different people. For example, like I know that this council is very supportive of, for example, like the food trucks. I don't really take a position on one way or another if that's a great thing for the community or not. I know that there's other people like that really want revitalization and they want movement and places to go and what does that look like? But a lot of people have different opinions. I'm in a very unique position because I try and talk to everyone where some of the neighbors might not share that opinion. I think that the interesting thing that I've seen over the last couple of years to what I think that the thought behind your comment is, if we have, whether it be old businesses, new businesses. From our perspective, what would make our lives easier is if they're good businesses. You know, we have, our town's filled with great businesses. We always try and think of, how can we help our businesses? You know, we obviously do address, you know, some of the businesses that attract, people that speed, run the stop sign, break the law. That's kind of in our wheelhouse, but, I don't really think that there's not a lot that this council really doesn't know. As far as decision points and what it looks like, I think, you know, having messaging going forward of what that looks like, because the one thing that I think it was challenging for the police department is, you know, if the goal is like revitalization and to have a thriving whatever that is, you know, how does that coexist with the people that may not want that and live here? You know, we have a lot of comments and in essence complaints that we get from certain citizens, no different than you know, like Lake Cliff and the amphitheater, but you know, being like the sail lofts and we have residents that live above La Riva that are extremely unhappy at the vibrancy. Right? So it's kind of challenging of in one breath saying, you know, vibrant and let's do certain things, and others really aren't necessarily on board with that because it affects maybe their quality of life. And the one thing I think about, and I think it kind of gets to the heart of it, is now how do we fit into that to manage? You know, whether it be loud music, loud cars, drunk drivers, things along those lines. You know, there's not really a lot that the public or the council doesn't know. Like, there's not really a big curtain of us working, you know, in the town in general. You know, because we really look at the whole town. You know, over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of focus on the core area, and I think everybody gets that. It's, you know, but we have vibrant areas all over the town. You know, City Market is incredibly busy. You know, everything up there. You know, we think of things sometimes a little differently, like the movie theater has a big parking lot, right? Unbeknownst to the movie theater, you know, there's 100 cars that show up from Denver, you know, for some kind of car meet at midnight, right? So there's just a lot of different opportunities. Always trying to figure out we can best deal with when issues do come up. That's no secret. We've had very critical incidents in the Corps. Our officers have produced results when things like that happen, but it's very reactionary as opposed to, you know, what can we do to maybe head some of that off of that, which, you know, I do think the addition of having a community service officer with someone really specifically focused on talking to the businesses more on a regular basis. When it comes to permitting, business licensing, things like that, I think will be very valuable. Did that kind of get at the thought that you were talking about?
Kinda.
Can I throw out maybe an example? So, Linda and I were working on the nuisance concerns from constituents, which and we've got a lot of photos and you know, concerns about it, and we we're hopeful that we will have a new community service officer soon. But and we were trying to wade through the nuisance code. So, we're close to bringing that forward. So how do we do that now? So we've got all the photos and we've rounded up the comments from the community members. We kind of waded through the nuisance code to see what fits. And so now what's the next step? There.
We're more than happy to take your information, but I would ask a couple questions. What did you think about the nuisance ordinance when you read through it?
The heavy duty one from Denver, you're talking about that nuisance order?
No. I'm
No,
talking
or
about-
our existing one.
Yeah.
It seems like it's, you have to send letters to these building owners in particular, or it can be businesses too. We need to send letters and say, hey, leaving pallets outside your door for 4 months, trashy looking thing is not okay, or a year. That would be a simple one to expound on. Or this window's been broken for X amount, these lights have been out for, 8 months. It creates a dark corridor that seems unsafe to constituents. It looks to us like you have to start by writing letters or to whoever, and then we have to follow up in court, as if I understand that correctly.
Well, the reason I bring it up, because I also talk to a lot of constituents that you do too. If you compare and contrast to like what Denver's is, how did you think that our ordinance read? Is it old and antiquated? And could use,
The one from Denver is powerful, and we could use some pieces off of it. In hindsight, after we talked to people and looked at things, we're not sure just letter writing is going to cut it. But that's the whole council has to decide that. So we want to
Yeah.
kind of bring it back.
well, so driving the policy side of it,
Yeah.
as your police chief, I would love to work together collaboratively to.
Yeah. What's enforceable? That's where
Exactly.
Linda and I were
What's
looking at.
enforceable and
Yeah.
what are other communities using that
Yeah.
has worked or not? Because to your point, letter writing and signs sometimes are really hard. Right? Because not everybody's gonna read. So I think moving forward, that could be a great move for the council if you want to collaborate and, updating something like that, because, from a policy side, that should happen. Like when I first started in Dillon and I asked the town attorney at the time of how hard would it be to go in and literally repeal or start from scratch, and he laughed and said never happened. But if we don't update and do certain things collaborative in the future, like it is going to become a lot more challenging because there's less and less you can do, and quite frankly, Colorado, there's not as much consequence as some people would really hope right now, and vice versa. So, as far as you guys gathering information and whatnot, I'd be more than happy to take that and look into that. Because we would take it on a case by case basis and address what we can. Great opportunity to reach out to the community where there is issues. And I think you bring up a really great issue of, having pallets, trash, windows, anything with blight, things like that. It does attract nefarious things late at night. I mean, so, whatever issues and stuff that we can deal with on the front end of that, but have an overall, what does that look like? Just having a nuisance ordinance of, if the police department comes so many times, what does that look like? Is that a summons in a municipal court? There's a lot of different ways to look at it, but.
So the three strikes you're out or something.
Three strikes you're out, but,
Yeah.
People also realizing too that, their perception isn't always, the gotcha or illegal even for that matter. That's why each of those has to be gone through and investigated and really put on paper, because,
Barb, are your concerns having to do with the policies within the code or specifically the enforcement of the code?
It's more enforcement, but remember that discussion, it happened a while ago. So you gotta remember Linda and I've been working on this for a while, but it wasn't at the top of the priority list at the moment. So, but now it is kind of because it's summer and things can be taken care of more easily than in the winter. So the question was, but Chief, you and the attorney said, well, you got to know what's in the code so that, because some things won't apply, right? And so we started studying the code, and yeah, we could redline, we could take that Denver one and redline ours, and probably Linda and I could just work on it and could bring you something, because we've already read through it, which is, it's substantial. So we can do whatever you think is best, but the whole point was to raise the level of what Dillon looks like currently, and try to, trash sitting there for a year, and we've took photos, trash that's sitting there a year is too long. It just needs to be gone, and it just doesn't look right. So, and broken windows that have been there probably over a year. I mean, we've been taking photos, other people have sent us photos. Um, just, so, it just isn't, yeah, that's more of a blight question is, look, you don't have the right to create blight necessarily in this mountain community, especially if it's something simple to fix. I'm not talking about an entire facade of a building. We're talking about simple things that just need attention, and clearly you get used to it. You just walk right by it every day. If you're the building owner or the business owner, and you forget that really doesn't help, the look of the place. So that's kind of where we were attacking it. And so we can just we had hoped, to work with the community service officer. And so we just need to know when, like, we've got it pretty much queued up. So we just need to know what to bring you, I guess.
You can bring us all.
Okay, we'll just.
And it doesn't need to be the community service officer. It can be me.
Okay, that's fine. So we'll just mark it up and we'll just bring it on in then. But that was an example. I don't know if that's where Josh was going with it, but
No, and I get the other side, one of the things that I know that you brought up, like, what is enforceable, because obviously some of the things you were talking about obviously deals with private property.
yeah,
So where's the balance in that?
Mhm.
That's why I brought up the code piece of that, because I don't think our code is particularly strong. Like you said, you're not saying that the Denver one is the right way to go either.
yeah, but we could, I think Linda and I could chop it up, and you're right, Linda, we could chop it up and bring
Absolutely.
something back to you.
Yeah.
The two of them, and just see if we can put something together. But that was one example. I did have another question about, just some things that are going on after midnight in parking lots. And so you said this was kind of a conversation. So
Absolutely.
is there a way that we just say parking lots close at midnight? The ones that don't allow overnight parking? I don't know how that works, but is there a way, if there's a certain area that is causing problems, can we create an ordinance that says, okay, these parking lots close at midnight? If there's no businesses open
There's
around them, no
No
nothing.
parking from 2 to 6
There's rotating lots.
Yeah, the rotating
in
lots.
the winter time, because we're not doing that in the summertime.
Right.
I think if it's your appetite to create an ordinance as such, I think that's definitely a way to go.
I don't know if it would be helpful. That's the
Well,
question.
yeah, enforcing that and managing that, I think is also interesting, especially when Dillon owns the public parking lots.
Mhm.
But I think the root of what you're getting at is what's happening in certain parking lots
After
at certain
midnight.
times of the
Yeah.
night. You know,
So parking lots, what about streets? So like in my community, there's an awful lot of people that with
park
Airbnb.
on the side of the street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on the street.
I would say that your community actually takes the majority of our tickets overnight.
Okay, well, as long as they're getting,
Yeah.
yeah, so it seems to be getting worse.
Yeah, I think it goes in spurts, especially, I mean, I'm not gonna say that. I just think that we have certain parts of the year that people, especially in your neighborhood, do utilize parking on the right of way. Do block other driveways, do things like that. And I think that your neighbors are very quick to point that out as well.
Okay.
But I would say too, that just if people take warnings or tickets, it doesn't, I think there's a misconception from some of the people that I've talked to that, they're illegally parked, so they're getting towed. That's not happening.
Okay.
Just so the community is aware of that. You know, if we take a parking complaint and it's not actively affecting something right now, like, we're not gonna tow that because we don't have the legal authority to do that after last year's.
Other question?
Yeah.
Jen?
All right. I have 5 questions here, and if you can't answer them now, then just a follow back would be great. But one is there a breakdown available of calls for Dillon versus Keystone? The calls for service, you know, percentage wise or otherwise?
There isn't readily available,
Mhm.
obviously with the comm center and trying how we're pulling stats. That is one thing that I'm working on because obviously Keystone wanted that breakdown specifically to how we did our ORIs. We physically have to go in and do them by hand. So we're gonna try and find a better way to do that, which will be included in the monthlies of that. But if you want those, I mean, we can try and go and break them down specifically by geography. The percentage of where we're at, it's about 25%. So Keystone is roughly a little under 25% when the CFS come on, what the numbers came out to be, but I can work on that. I would say it's gonna take a while to get it.
And that's fine. That's just a question I'd like, you know, in the future or whatever. And then also in the same line as that, the types of calls, are you seeing a different incident rate in Keystone for a certain type of call versus Dillon? You know, like, are they having more problems with just looking at this, and this is just ballparking it, but like, do they have, well, I'll just flip this up. Do they have more noise complaints and Dillon has more medical calls, or, you know, like, are they seeing a certain type of call for service versus we're seeing a different type here? And that's, again, at a later date or something, but I'm just kind of looking for trends. And that goes to like trends for Dillon. I know that Keystone's new, and so maybe this is something that can be started like this year going forward, but trends for Dillon, are we seeing more calls? Are we seeing more of a certain type of call year over year? And then now that Keystone is, you know, we have the Dillon Keystone Police Department. It's a great opportunity. We have 1 year under our belt with them. I know that the county would have those, but it might be harder to kind of analyze that. But year over year, like, what kind of calls are they seeing? Are they seeing an increase of calls, a decrease, an increase of a certain type of call? And then I was also curious about asset deployment, like kind of our bigger ticket items, like the 3 that I just thought of here, but there could be others, but like the Bearcat, the drone, the K9, what's the frequency of deployment on any of those over a year or a certain period of time to know, as far as investment goes, you know, like how often are we utilizing the tools that we have? If we need to update them, if they're getting heavy use, if it's not something that we're seeing in our community, so we don't need to expand or update as frequently. Then the other question I had based on your report was, I see in the future staffing needs an admin assistant and AVIS coordinator. Did we, and it may be before I was on council, but was there an AVIS discussion?
There has not been in Dillon.
Okay,
There has been in Keystone. So why that's in there is if that moves forward, which Keystone wants that to do. What my intention is as that materializes and what it looks like, I think that there is benefit in both towns in certain very specific areas. So as that materializes, I'm gonna bring that information here. What my intention is to do is, if Keystone wants to go ahead and implement that program, I would like to use the speed study and some of the pre-work in Dillon specifically that hasn't been done in the past. Now, obviously, one of the things that we've talked about every year since I've been here is Highway 6 traffic, right? How do we slow people down? They seem to think that that's a very good idea of what that looks like. Like I said, I think trying to play off both of those a little bit can benefit both communities. I have not brought it in front of Dillon yet. And if you guys don't have an appetite for it, then that's a pretty easy conversation.
what,
But why that's in there is, you know, that would be a self-funding position. if that was,
What is Avis? Sorry.
in essence, it's the speed cameras.
Okay,
In
so,
essence, so they're stationary speed cameras. You know, one of the things that I actually did talk about in Keystone that I also haven't brought to Dillon is because strategically, Dillon doesn't need a flock camera. Strategically, flock would be very valuable in one specific part of Keystone, plus give us access to the system of that. They chose not to do that. So that's kind of how that ended.
Okay.
You know, and that's something looking into the future of if that develops, when it develops. The thing, we are going to walk through the budget almost step by step with the police department in the very near future. One of the things looking into the future is looking at the admin staff and what does that look like? In essence, trying to create an admin 1 and 2. Because right now we have an admin person that does a lot of things. But, you know, what does that workload look like? If some of the projects actually got done, some of that workload might decrease, you know, like ticket processing, certain things like that. But the general knowledge of that, of having an admin 2 is almost a supervisor of 1 that can cover vacations. So we have a public facing employee all the time. Because right now we don't. You know, if we have, say our admin person goes to a meeting, on vacation, is sick of that, you know, the other office staff is covering. That's not ideal to me. So that's why that was added in that way. I do think there'll be an updated version of that where, and I'm working with our admin staff right now to look at what specific job descriptions look like or what they can look like from an admin 1, 2 position. Because putting all your eggs in one basket of that is not ideal. So diversified jobs, roles and responsibilities a little bit. Avis did get put in there very specifically because when that happens, what the workload looks like increase. I'm very confident actually, and after looking at the three identified vendors of that, of what it takes to manage a program like that, I think one of the benefits would be you can only use funds for certain things by state law. One of those things actually could cover a staff position to do certain things. You know, the majority of those other funds are all road and safety related. So looking into the future, that could be a possibility.
Okay. One last question. Earlier, you mentioned outdated ordinances. Is there a plan to, like, that makes it hard for the officers to write certain tickets, or they simply can't enforce certain ordinances that we have on our books or that we have? Do we have a plan for updating those and maybe get?
You know, there isn't a plan right now because if you think of what's happened in the last couple of years, we've had 3 town attorneys in 4 years, 4 years or 5 years. So bringing ordinances regularly has not been a priority. In fact, it's been really challenging, so we have not done it. I think the nuisance ordinance would be a really good start to change that.
well, we already looked at it, so I think we can do an assist and just bring you some ideas, yeah.
But as a department, it would be helpful if we did update that. I mean,
Yeah.
and kind of prioritizing updating it. Would
Yeah,
it?
I definitely think that there's some that are very outdated. You know, and why I brought up, especially in Keystone, of creating ordinances has been fascinating to watch because, you know, sometimes there's certain intent. And by the time that they're done and through the attorneys, they may not have the same feel at the end of that. So I think it's the appetite of the council, we could definitely start with the nuisance ordinance and kind of get in a rhythm and identify the stuff that needs to be updated and get it scheduled. You know, if that's the wish of the council, for sure.
Thank you.
Do I have time just to ask?
Unless other council people first.
Yeah.
No, you got 3 minutes.
I don't know if it'll take that. So, you know, going back to the vacancies, I had these questions in here to start. So I have three and they kind of go together. So how do we fill vacancies? What's recruitment look like and what do we need to do to improve it?
Well, I would say with the addition of the HR person, there's already been
Okay.
improvements. I think that that was incredibly hard for our staff to deal with a lack of presence in the office. I would say since Mr. McKenna has been here, there's already been improvement.
Very good.
I think that looking at where we recruit and how we recruit, I would say we've gotten probably some of our best people by our internal staff actually recruiting people and meeting people. You know, the nationwide searches and stuff that some other organizations have spent a lot of money on hasn't worked for us in the past as it's usually intended, where you don't get a pool of 30, 40 applicants. We've had a lot better luck of really focusing on people that are already in our communities, that live here. But it does take longer to do it that way. So some of the strategies that we've already talked about of, you know, where are we posting? What does that look like?
Mhm.
You know, whether it be just locally, obviously some of the other sites that we haven't been posting on, we're going to. And I think when people look at the posting, are we competitive all the way across the board? And today, we're very competitive in certain things. We're addressing things to actually enhance that of what it looks like. Stuff that we're already doing. You know, a list of things that we will be looking at just in the very near future, which will get to the heart of your question. Overnight salary differentials, take-home cars, looking at a very certain specific scheduling model, which I'm not going to touch on because we are.
No, it's conceptual, right?
No, it is
Oh.
somewhere else, but obviously there are certain things that until we get farther down the road, I don't want to talk about, because if it doesn't happen, then our employees like, well, you said this was going to happen. This is stuff that we are talking about every day. Obviously, salary scales, pay scales, what does that look like? Benefits packages, specialty considerations being, for example, like people that are on our MERT team, FTOs, canines, and handlers, instructors, bilingual officers is very important. We're looking at what does our wellness program look like in general? How do we fund an appropriate wellness program? And what goes into that? Some of that comes down to town benefits and what does that look like? You know, and Dillon and Keystone both are kind of unique because there are certain things that neither town has that other towns do. An example would be like a rec center or things that are readily available that are included in their benefits package, which we just don't have. The one thing that we're going to continue to talk about and have already taken steps is dealing with our facilities. You know, the number of employees that we have that don't have windows needs to be corrected, but that is not a small project by any means. Housing, what does that look like? I mean, you guys just voted to support the Habitat project. You know, what internally is the town of Dillon, what does that look like as far as affordable housing? I've never really called it affordable housing. I call it attainable housing. What does that look like for our employees? Down payment assistance. You know, can we offer employees that we bring on board down payment assistance? What does that look like? Is it Dillon? Is it Summit County specific? Is it attached to the bus routes? These are conversations that are happening in every facet of county of the workforce. The interesting thing in law enforcement over the last couple of years, which is just mind blowing to me, is like hiring bonuses. You know, I've seen hiring bonuses is almost at 100,000 in certain places, which is, to me, is totally egregious. I'm not a huge fan of hiring bonuses. I think if we're going to spend that kind of money to bring people here, I would like to see that money going to the people that are already here making that happen. And look at kind of what that looks like. However, the retention bonuses is a different discussion. You know, long-term employees, what does that look like? Is it paid time off after certain years? Is, you know, in essence, sabbaticals? You know, so trying to be creative and thoughtful of going through the effort and the expense of hiring people here, keeping them here, is going to be the hardest thing that we do. That's a long version of what you asked.
No,
But I think,
yeah,
you know, obviously, as I go through just my notes from today, clearly that is a very important piece of where we need to.
we, at the Colorado Municipal League Conference, I did attend several of the personnel, culture classes, et cetera. And what you just, mentioned was mentioned often. And they were suggesting to use candidate profiles besides job descriptions, so you get the type of person you want. You guys kind of do that anyway, but there was also the Employers Council did a presentation, and I don't know what kind of help they could give us, but they're around. So, and then the housing, attainable housing, we do more, I found out we do more than others. So, but I'm not sure we advertise it that much. So it's those type of things. That's why I was asking.
When you say that we do more, like what specifically would be an example of that?
Some of the communities have no ability to do any sort of housing assistance. And of course, the municipal league is all sizes.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
Sure.
people who are smaller than us as well as larger. And that is something, also, some communities have decided to purchase housing for their, for their police officers. I don't know how that would even work, do they need a single condo? Do they need is it a, how do, according to the Employers Council, you ask people what they want, ask them what it is that and we just completed that survey, which needs some more work, and is a little rough, but I think we can glean some stuff out of it. And so
Yeah, and
that's
the one thing I would point out, and you bring up a really good point, Dillon offers a lot. But one thing that, and I can only speak for the police department, we need to be better at telling people what that package looks like. You know, to your point, we offer a lot. Our pay scales are very competitive. We're an FPPA organization. So we have a lot, and I think in the past that we have not done a good job of marketing that in totality. And I think that your point, especially in CML, like there's a lot of communities that are trying to figure out what that looks like to them. And there's crazy conversations, right, about just outright buying properties and houses and, trying to get people in any way they can, which, I just think that that's kind of what the market looks like in Colorado. People are doing really creative things of that. I will say one thing that we will talk about in the future is, which I think will be one of the most important things that we may do is the schedule. But there's costs associated with that too. So.
Yeah, it's like an a la carte. They were talking about that. There's like an a la carte. These are all the things you could offer, and here's the cost to them, and and then you have to craft some of the information was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that conference was amazing. So many different ways.
Okay.
All right, any more comments from council members? Thank you so much, Chief.
Sorry.
We'll move on to agenda item 4, the nonprofit grant committee discussion, and turn that over to Adrian.
Yeah, it's almost time. I believe it closes on August 12th. and then we'll know how many applications we'll have for the nonprofits. I know when we went over committee applications, Councilmember White said she wanted to volunteer, and we probably need about 2 more. And then we'd like to try to get 2 from PrAC, and then we'll have committee. And does anyone want to volunteer? Well, you don't.
So Ben would like to
Okay.
volunteer.
Yeah,
I can help too.
Okay.
So we have 3 council members, 2 PrAC members and 1 staff member. So I guess that question is answered. Any comments or suggestions from council? Adrian, you happy with everything?
Good. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
We'll move on then to agenda item 5, the vacancy report review.
Six town vacancy study. So staff recently completed a town-wide vacancy study by evaluating each building to identify occupied and vacant spaces. Leasable square footage was used to evaluate the vacancies. I have the equation I used down there for complete transparency. I went through, looked at the vacant units, if there were any, came back here, pulled up the plans, looked at the square footage, and that's how I found info. And town core is at 11%. That kind of makes sense to me. That's probably where we have the most turnover in town. Dillon Ridge was really low. Same with Anemone. That also included Red Mountain Plaza. Little Beaver is kind of the outlier at 18%, and we only have 3 commercial buildings on Little Beaver. So this just tended to be a larger one that is now empty. So, and then the town core at 6%. So I do have a spreadsheet. I don't know if you guys' packet that goes through all of it. I do list like a business in each building, just to give you an idea of what that building is. So those aren't actually vacant businesses. Those are just to give you an idea what building it is. And yeah, happy to answer any questions.
Did the town core vacancy include the buildings that were just bought by, Bug Rides and the Meridian and stuff like that as a vacancy?
Let's see. I believe so, yes. Let's see.
So it's, might be a little bit higher than, might be a little bit less than what it is because those are vacant because they're in transit. They're not
Yeah,
being rented out.
I kind of just tended to go with what was happening exactly right now, but that's a good point.
It doesn't look like those were included in
No.
on
I don't see
page
'em, yeah.
on page 2. They're not included. So that would make those numbers accurate then.
Okay.
There was, although, the Summit Resort Group building, or 350 Lake Dillon Drive,
Mm-hmm.
it's actually 66%, not
Okay.
33. The 33 is actually rented, but the 66% is open.
Okay.
So I talked to the owner,
Okay.
so that one just needs to be fixed.
All right.
And then I also happen to be talking, there's some people have been asking about leasing, so I've been trying to assist them. And, Carlos at La Riva, they told me there's only 1 space left over there now.
Really?
There's only 1. So, and it has no water.
Hmm.
So it's a small space.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess when I went through La Riva, buildings that were, or units that were completely trash bagged over, with
Mhm.
no signs or whatsoever, I counted as vacant because,
Yeah, there's new boutiques and such in there, so it may have changed recently. So that one may need to be revisited is all I'm saying.
okay.
So, Um, and, and then the only other question I had, is it okay if I go with questions? Okay. Was, some tenants are asking about the tenant finish. Is there an application for, filling these vacancies? There's some people that would like to apply, and I don't know where we are in that application.
Is that for the grant?
Yeah, for the grant, whatever the one that we could do.
The tenant finish grant?
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, Heather. She was the one who was. leading.
okay, so they're just asking, is the application available? And I said I would ask, so here I am
So-
asking.
Where legal is still reviewing that at
Okay.
this point. We're, the other thing that we're looking at is we're looking at the funding source. So I think
Yes.
the meeting on the 21st of July might help guide what funds are available for grant opportunities. The one thing that did come up, which is, keep in mind that we've done a facade grant before.
Mhm.
I think with some limited success. Something that came up at the EDAC meeting was, could you include signage upgrades and whatnot as a part of that program? And so that's something that they're looking into.
So EDAC's looking into it.
EDAC, and we also mentioned it to our town attorney,
Oh, okay.
who is looking at how that could be included as a part of that grant program. There were several of them that were no-goes, and I think you know that in terms of the incentive program, but in terms of and I know we didn't call it a facade improvement, we called it I can't remember the exact wording.
Well, it was tenant finish or just, assistance getting people readying spaces. It wasn't just facade,
Well, we can't do rental assistance.
not rental.
Okay.
No, assistance in
It was
construction.
improvement.
Improvements. There we
Improvement,
go.
yeah, exactly.
And at least so that message went out loud and clear because I've had several calls on it.
Right.
So anyway,
So looking at the study that was done, to me, what's more telling is the buildings that are occupied, which if you look at them, seems to be mostly commercial in nature.
Mm-hmm.
And where your vacancies are outstanding seem to be more office oriented. Some of those buildings have a dual function, but I think that that's telling that all the retail seems to be fairly occupied.
Mm-hmm.
And office by nature, probably statewide, is probably in the same boat.
Absolutely.
So upgrading facades on office doesn't necessarily mean you're going to attract more office.
Mm-hmm.
no, I think it'd be more interior finish to try to get people, they need to change the layout to get either office or retail or restaurant into these spaces.
Well, that might be a solution to try and change it from office attractability to more retail or
Mm-hmm.
commercial restaurant space. That's just my thoughts.
Right.
When was the last vacancy report completed?
It was done in 2025, but it was not as thorough as this one.
So would it be accurate? I mean, would it be accurate enough to compare where we're seeing vacancies today versus a year ago, or would?
Yeah. We could do that.
Okay, so just a year over year or a study over study, like the trend, I'm big on trends. What are the trends we're seeing as far as where the vacancies are, what type of vacancies they are? To say what Josh was just saying, retail versus office, whatever, but like, what are we seeing within, the different areas of our town? So, thank you.
So one other observation would be that, at past council meetings, it's come up that commercial's unattractive, residential sells, commercial doesn't, but looking at this kind of tells a different story. That if you have the commercial, it is going to get leased. And I think that that's very good data to look at here, that we shouldn't be scared away to change something to more commercial or restaurant versus that might be more office oriented.
Great.
Other council comments?
There was, so once again, at the Colorado Municipal League, there was an interesting, section on how they were evaluating, opportunities, businesses that want to come in and maybe compete for the similar spaces. And it was out of Windsor. I'm going to try to get their information, but it was really interesting how they just put it together. Like, okay, this business needs this much power, this much water, it generates this many jobs at this much, these, at this per hour earnings, this much housing is needed. I thought it was a really good analysis. And so I was going to call them and see if I could get that, because I thought it might be helpful for us at some point.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I mean,
I thought they had a good method.
yeah,
yeah.
and those are several points that all businesses here need to consider. I mean, we've had people run into electricity problems after they moved in and things like that. So,
Well, I did find out so in trying to help some people look for spaces in Dillon, it was an eye opener. So some buildings have gas, some don't. Some buildings have water in the units, some don't. So you can't always just you can't take an office space necessarily and convert it into a restaurant quickly anyway. So I will call and get that and get it to you, John.
great, thank you.
Just a quick update that I got from Heather was that it doesn't sound like we can help with interior finishes as part of the grant program, but we can do exterior. So,
Okay, so the tenant finish we do currently is sales tax rebate. So it's different.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can, I'll make sure I circle back with our town attorney, and kind of see where we're headed with that.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item 6, discussion on adopting the Summit County Building Code and secondary codes, and we'll turn that over to Ned.
Evening. I wanted to first let you know that we actually have this on the regular meeting as well for the first reading. Trying to move it forward as quickly as possible if that is your desire. We aren't trying to jam it forward. It's just the way that the county has adopted it. They are already enforcing the new codes. And if we are going to line up with them as we typically do, the desire was to get in line as quickly as possible, so that as we get projects coming in, we can have them being reviewed consistently with what the county is doing. It's a pretty extensive code package that they have adopted. I will highlight that, as you'll recall, when we adopted the wildfire resiliency code previously, along with the fire code, that's there, the building department and the fire district both have inspection and oversight capacities on those codes. And therefore, we're kind of doubling up and adopting the Summit County wildfire resiliency code as part of this package. That's how they adopted it. They did have one minor amendment to that code, and it relates to the ability to use wood siding, which was not clearly stated in the wildfire resiliency code. It just needs to be treated as a fireproof product. And so they made that clarification. I can tell you that part of the adoption of this code series, since we're coming in after July or June 30th, Unfortunately, the county didn't bring us along as quickly, and they did it right up against the end here. State statute does require, if you're adopting codes after July 1, that you adopt either let me get it right, the Colorado Model Low Energy and Carbon Code, or a more stringent code. Now, that code is based on the National Energy Conservation Code, International Energy Conservation Code. And what the county elected to do was to write their own amendments to that International Energy Conservation Code to be more stringent than that model code from the state. Their feeling was that the model code from the state was quite convoluted and difficult for them to manage. So their feeling was that it would be better to move forward with their own adoption package. I do not have their justification yet in hand for it being more stringent than the state's model code. However, they are quite confident in the fact that it is and are working on that document as a backup in case they are challenged. So we will have that shortly if we do in fact adopt and get challenged on it. As I stated before, traditionally what we have done is adopt the code in sync with the county. There are certain reasons for that. We utilize them as our building department, and they are the code experts. Staying in sync with them enables us to continue to use their services without us having to hire a third-party building inspector. We are such a small community and staff size that we don't have capacity internally, and nor does it seem prudent for us to hire our own building inspector. However, if that is the direction that we ultimately go based on your deliberations tonight, that would be something that we might have to explore. Let's see. With the adoption of this code package, we are looking at adopting a whole series of codes. And let me see if I can pull that up. So the International Building Code 2024 edition, the International Residential Code 2024 edition. Just to clarify that, the IRC or International Residential Code, that applies to single family and duplex construction. The IBC applies to multifamily and commercial construction. The International Energy Conservation Code, as amended, as I just mentioned, the International Mechanical Code 2024 edition, the International Plumbing Code 2024 edition, the International Fuel Gas Code 2024 edition, the International Existing Building Code 2024 edition, the International Swimming Pool and Spa Code 2024 edition, the International Electric Code 2000 edition, and the Uniform Code of Abatement of Dangerous Buildings 1997 edition. Please.
2000 edition for the electrical?
That is what they have in there, yes.
Oh, you got it. Newest electrical code is 2026.
And that's correct. I think there's also some state electrical codes that supersede all of this. This is just in addition
Yeah, I mean,
to, right.
they just,
Right.
just adopted 2026, so we are definitely under that anyway.
Right. This is some specific administrative provisions
Okay,
from that ICC Electrical Code 2000 edition that they have.
okay.
But yeah, there's
Yeah,
the
it is
overarching state.
Overarching state, okay.
Correct. So that summarizes that. I do have in, at the very end of my staff report, I have a section that was adopted in the code for, the county, and that's called the REMP, which stands for Renewable Energy. Sorry, I'm just not getting there. Maybe it's not at the very end. Bear with me one moment, please.
It's just on the front page, I thought, of your thing. That one?
contacted. Okay, the Renewable Energy Mitigation Program. The idea with that REMP code, which the county really compelled the building department to employ, is to provide for a mechanism for offsetting outdoor energy installations with renewable energy. So there are different ways that that's handled, community to community. And I can tell you that some of the other communities, Silverthorne and Keystone, to my knowledge, both have decided not to adopt the REMP code along with this building code adoption that the county went through. In speaking with the chief building official, his recommendation is that should we consider a renewable energy mitigation plan, that we should actually consider that into our land use code, because it makes more sense for us to address this upfront with prospective developers so that they just incorporate things of renewable energy offset into their design, as opposed to getting comments back at plan review. So if you all would like, we can certainly look at that. Based on that, I kind of open it up for conversation. What all you would like to do. The concept here is we could do first reading tonight, if you would like, or we could pull it off the agenda. And the idea would be that we'd have a public hearing on this at the July 21st meeting. I can tell you, I did receive one set of comments about the increased costs associated with new codes. And we see that every time we adopt a new set of codes, the codes become increasingly more stringent, and there's a burden. It's almost a tax applied to people that are doing projects, single family people all the way to larger developments. The comments I received estimate that these new codes could increase costs for construction anywhere from $18 to $32 a square foot. That's no small bit, but it is extremely expensive to build in Summit County, and that just adds to that cost. So that's one person's opinion. Their analysis is general and not extremely detailed, so I don't have a lot of facts, but I'd be happy to share this with you all if you would like to see it. I did just receive it shortly before this meeting, so.
So they've adopted this code, which we're required to go along with. They've also adopted local amendments to that, which if we're going to pursue further, we would have to be more stringent than those local amendments, or
The local amendments countywide that the county adopted are more stringent than that inner.
so because they've adopted, we're required to accept what they've adopted,
We either adopt
or even
what
go
they've
even more
adopted.
stringent.
Or we go with the state code. The issue is if we go with the state code, then we're having to pull in a third party plan review and inspector. So it just complicates things.
And then there's a suggestion on something that might be more applicable for the town of Dillon, what you just mentioned with regards to a certain set of.
Yeah, and so the way I've put forth the Summit County Building Code that's presented tonight and is pulled out the renewable energy mitigation program. And if we want to implement that, it essentially says you must install solar if you're heating your sidewalks, and you must install it on site. Other communities have made for a fund where you can pay into a fund, and then a larger renewable energy project could be created, like a solar farm, if you will, offsite. The advantage with that offsite kind of option and having that capacity, for instance, is if you would consider what we were considering for the alleyway, were that project to move forward, we had intended to heat the plaza area so that it was safe in the winter, and yet we had no on-site location to put solar panels or wind turbines or whatever else. So, perhaps we could look into geothermal, but just setting up the mechanical infrastructure for anything to support a renewable energy offset on-site would not work for that location. So should we move forward with a REMP program, I would think that perhaps we consider an option to be able to pay into a fund, as many communities do.
Questions from council members?
Ned, do we have anything in the town of Dillon that supersedes the county regulations as far as building code that they would need to be aware of when they're doing inspections?
We do not.
We do not, okay. We used to, I just want to make sure that that's been corrected. Yeah.
They for the past almost 2 decades, I think they got very progressive, very conservation aware, and as you may recall, we were adopting the sustainability code through Summit County, and that's most of these international codes have caught up with that now, and there's yet this one energy and carbon conservation code that the county has taken it a little step further to be sure that we are exceeding the state mandate with that one. But no, the town would not have any separate ones that would be at issue.
Wanted to check.
So how does council feel? Are we all okay with what Ned is presenting?
Yes.
Thank you, Ned.
I'd rather renewable energy be on site rather than elsewhere, but
But we can write our own part of that, is what you're saying. Yeah.
And then my suggestion, I mean, you all could pull it in to the code right now. We could amend the code language to pull it in. My recommendation, based on my conversations with the chief building official, is that we do a code amendment and get it into our land use code. It just simply makes sense for it to be there. So we have those conversations up front. That it is more of a land use situation where we're really saying, well, if you're heating this plaza, then you need to be sure that you're providing on-site renewable energy mitigation.
There was, so at the Mountain Towns 2030 one I attended that was kind of specifically on that, buildings and plazas and heating, snow melt systems and all that. What they're running into in other communities is there's not enough power in the Western grid for them to run everything electrical, for example. And so, yeah, you're saying if you put a solar panel in, that's one thing, but they were trying to use it off the existing grid and purchasing renewables through like Excel to fund that massive plaza that has to be heated. And they were running into, there's not enough capacity in the town to actually have enough juice to heat that. So it was an interesting discussion as the designers want to do it, but the capability is not there necessarily.
And you can add on to that the fact that the smaller communities and the mountains are running out of gas too, because there's not enough gas in the pipes to add on for snow melt. So that's another problem.
Yeah, the non-pipeline alternative. It's coming up in all of those discussions. So it is but they did talk about over in Utah, they have a payment in lieu. If you can't do it, then they're funding other projects down the valley.
Yeah. I like the payment in lieu of, as opposed to, and I'm just speaking if we're wanted to talk about this REMP concept, payment in lieu of into a fund that the town would hold, as opposed to buying into Excel solar farm programs, because then we can accomplish things in our community and really, show dollar for dollar, if you will, real value in what we're trying to accomplish there. So that's kind of my thought on that.
And Ned, just to clarify, the The first reading is on the consent agenda, setting the date for the public hearing on the 21st of July.
Correct.
Correct, okay.
And one comment on the one letter saying the expense of the codes. Unfortunately, a lot of this comes from the national, yeah, the national committees. And a lot of the expenses are really to bolster some industries in the in the country, and rather than being necessary as really safety or anything like that. It's just a matter of, hey, we've got this new thing, and they present it to the committees, and the committees say, oh, that sounds good, and they put it in there, and it does drive up the cost more than really is necessary.
Yeah, I would probably agree, Ben. I would think the
Yeah.
International
But-
Code Council is probably influenced by
But
lobbyists.
there's not too much,
Many
there's not too
decisions
much a
are-
small town like Dillon could do about it. Yeah.
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 But again, it's an international code council, and these
Yeah.
are codes adopted around the world, and um, some towns write their own, and then when we get state mandates that are unfunded,
Yeah.
like this one, they're basically telling us to adopt their code. And yet we're hearing from our code official that, hey, their code isn't so great. We think we've done a better job. So that's kind of
Well,
where we are.
yeah.
We are stuck with our experts.
Well, well, even if we wanted to write our own codes, we couldn't, we would have to have our own inspector and building
Yes.
department and all that stuff. And it would be just way too expensive for the town, and it'd probably add to the cost of what in the long run.
And the building inspector would want an office with a window.
Okay.
So would you like to see this approved in the consent agenda with an amendment after or added? before?
I see no need for an amendment at this time.
Okay.
If you all want me to work on bringing forward the renewable energy mitigation program, then I'll work on that code language. It would be in a chapter 16 code amendment, so that would go before the planning commission. I do have a large hearing for the planning commission on August 5th. I don't know if it would be appropriate to bring forward a code amendment at the same time. So it might not be until September that I would get it before the planning commission, but we could certainly start working in that direction.
I just have one housekeeping thing. The effective date for some reason on page 115 is 2020. I think it's just a typo.
Thank you.
I don't know if it matters, Ned, but I don't know if it matters in these things when it's an ordinance. So it's page 115 of the packet.
Yeah.
And things like that, we can clean up between first and second reading.
Okay.
And we'll make note of it in
Yes,
our staff
sections.
report.
Yeah, it says section 7 effective date. I assume it was just a typo. But it does say January 1, but we're adopting it in, does it matter?
And
In July?
the county, their effective date was July 1.
Oh, okay.
They had intended to meet the January 1, and they just did not get there.
Okay.
I'd been trying to get information from them since back in September. When are you going to do this? And then I just heard, oh, by the way, we adopted. So thank
was
you,
it.
Barb. We'll look at that.
Any other questions,
No.
comments? Thank you so much, Ned, for the report. We'll move on to agenda item 7, staff reports. Assistant Public Works Director, Evan Dawson.
Like a tall guy sit at this table. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. So quick updates. The CT basin, the old water tank is finished. There are a few checklist items that we're working through, contractor. some overlap in drip line issues and just some cleanup of the site. We did publish our 2025 Consumer Confidence Report for water that's available online. It was mailed out to water users and published in the newspaper. Did want to talk a little about water usage. I was trying to prepare a chart comparing last year to this year, but according to Mark Hellman, Utility Superintendent, our usage is at least 20% down, if not 25% down year over year from last year. So that's awesome. I really want to thank the public, the homeowners, the HOAs for helping out in that effort. It's really helping us get through kind of a scary year here. Still collecting data and hopefully have something to actually show you guys at an upcoming meeting. Flows are not looking good. As you can see on some of those charts, we're trending pretty far down and actually looking really similar to what 2002 was. In 2002, by mid-July, we'd already reached that 2 CFS threshold. I'm not sure if at the time we had implemented a full ban at that time. You can see that we did get some monsoons apparently between July 22nd and mid-August, but quickly that stream flow subsided again. So we're keeping a close eye on that. Fingers crossed that this weather provides us some relief. But right now, even the 7-day outlook isn't too good. There's not a lot of moisture. There's not a lot of energy in these storms. So we will see where that goes. Bike racks have been ordered. They actually should be showing up tomorrow. So we'll get those out in Town Park soon this week. We're just going to set up one. We did get 2. They are temporary. We'll try to stripe I don't know what you call a goal box around those and just kind of see what the usage is. And if we get a request to put them both out, we'll sure do that. We did assemble and put out 5 more bike racks around the farmer's market, one at the marina. All the grills are covered. We try to remove most of those, and there are signs posted in our bus stops and around the parks, just educating people of the fire ban. The LED sign, Ned may speak on this a little bit more down there next to Christie Sports. The contractor is having some issues with their install. I'm waiting to hear back to see what their status update is. They did get the sign running, but it was having some connection or dimming issues. So hopefully we get that resolved soon. Other than that, we're out and about picking up trash, water and flowers, doing what we do. Any questions?
So the water situation from here forward, even though it's down 25% usage, is that going to compound over the next few weeks, or can we maintain being 25% down?
There does reach a certain point where, as I or Mark have mentioned at previous meetings, that we kind of have to pull a certain amount of water and then shut it off and let that pond back of the diversion refill. We can't just trickle in the water very slowly. So there is a chance, given this current trend, that we could see a full ban, but we're really hopeful not.
Okay.
And the big thing is, what's that?
There we are.
No, Father Murphy there.
So discard my last question.
We're all good.
Good.
Emergency over.
Trying to be hopeful. Again, I don't have a great comparison of those things, but even back in 2002, usage was a lot less already then, and we still had to do a ban. Wasn't here at that time, but it's just kind of how our water plant runs, and that we share it with Dillon Valley, and there's only so much in the stream. So very good. I hope my windows are rolled up.
So
Awesome.
so who's going to leave town?
Moment of silence.
Who's going to leave town so it starts raining more? Any other questions from council?
I just had one on the Pug Ryan's building.
Sure.
Just got a call from a constituent about the lights the power. The lights are on all day and night on parts of the building. Is that normal? Is there a way to shut some of them off?
We really haven't had a lot of time to dive into how those
Okay.
systems operate, but from an insurance and a security standpoint, we do want the lights on
Okay.
at night because the building is vacant. That has been requested by our insurance provider. It's just a security thing that we have chief and his team are rolling by. They know that no windows have been broken, nobody's trying to get
Okay.
in, trying to protect that asset.
Yeah, the lights for the old sign are on out front, so I don't know if you can, you know what I'm saying, is power, money, I don't know if there's any choices.
No, so a lot of those are LED, so they're not drawn a whole
Okay.
lot. We have tried for the most part to shut off a lot of the breakers inside to save that power. So
Okay, thank you.
nobody cares anymore. Rain.
I know. Oh, and I did want to say, I thought the flower baskets and the flowers were just beautiful and robust. I thought they were amazing
Thank
this
you.
year.
I'll pass that along.
Other questions from council members? Thank you so much, Evan. We'll move on to events, recreation, director's report. Jesse?
Good
All
evening,
yours.
Mr. Mayor and Council. Yeah, it's been a little bit since I've been here. Just a note that we rebalanced some of the director's reports. So you're actually going to hear from me now on the first meeting of each month instead of the second. So it's been a couple of weeks since I've been talking last. Just a few highlights. We really have had a lot of our annual events. So we had the Memorial Day ceremony, Town Cleanup Day, the Beer Festival, Bike to Work Day have all happened over the last month. Our concert series started. It's been incredibly successful. The attendance at the Monday night shows has just been phenomenal. Great community feedback. Just really hitting our stride down there. Farmers markets, I think we're 4 or 5 in now. One of the things I did want to point out, the voting did come back from the 2026 USA Today 10 Best Readers' Choice Awards. And this year we were awarded the number 2 position in the entire country. So we actually moved up over last year. So very excited about that. And then I just wanted to point out a couple of new events that we're trying here in the next couple of weeks. As I had been teeing up with you all, we are a little light on ticketed concerts here in July just because of band routing and what was available to us, the demand coming through Colorado this month. So what we did instead was we tried to add a couple of more community focused educational events. This Saturday at the amphitheater, we are doing a stargazing and dark sky experience. So we have 3 speakers coming. They're professionals from around the state coming to talk about dark sky and astronomy and stargazing and the importance of our night sky. We're starting off at 8:30. We're going to have about an hour of presentations. After that, we have a number of star guides, we're calling them, that are coming. They're bringing their own telescopes. We're going to set them up around the amphitheater, and we invite everyone to come and stop at each station and take a look at different celestial objects in our night sky. And we're also giving away a telescope to a child under 12. So if you know little ones that want to come out and enter a raffle for a chance to win a free telescope, somebody's going to go home with one that night. And then we're also going to break up into little groups that are going to go on kind of constellation tours too, with a guide for about 20 minutes or 15 to 20 minutes. So they'll take you out to a dark area and kind of point out different stars and constellations and talk a little bit about the mythology and some of the fun stories behind those as well. So trying something new, partnering with Astro Mark, as many of you know. He's been a really great help with this. So he's gathered up a lot of the speakers and the astronomers and all the folks that we're working with on this. So really excited to try something different. We hope to see you all there. It starts at 8:30 and it'll go to about 11 or when people start to head home. We did have on tap for Sunday another new recreation program. It was going to be a Wim Hof experience, and that's really based around guided breath work and cold plunging. But due to the smoke in the air, we actually made the decision today to postpone that. So we're going to move that to September. It just didn't feel right to invite people to do breath work in the air quality that we're currently experiencing. So we've made the decision with our partner on that to move that to September 6th, Labor Day weekend. We're going to try it then. So cross that off your list for now, but we hope to see you in September. And then next weekend on Sunday, we're going to be doing our raptor education. So that's the Birds of Prey program that we've had in the past. Really excited to bring that back. The Raptor Education Foundation. That's going to start at 2 p.m. at the amphitheater, go for about an hour, hour and a half. They bring birds and do a really cool educational presentation for people of all ages. That's free as well. So come on down, check that out. That one also, I will just caveat, is very air quality dependent. They've already given us a heads up that if it's not great enough for the birds, that we might not be able to have that one. But for now, it is a go, and hoping that things clear up between now and then. Any questions for me?
Who came in first?
What's that?
Who came in first in the USA?
Bethel Woods,
And
the
that
site
is
of Woodstock.
New York.
Yeah.
That's a big honor for us,
Yeah, they've done a bunch of work there the last couple of years.
but
Yeah.
for us to
Number 2, we beat Red
be on their
Rocks. We beat
tailcoats.
Vale. It's pretty exciting for
Yeah.
us.
That's great work. Thank you. Other questions from council members?
One more thing from the Colorado Municipal League. I did make connection with the circular economy group that's working out of the governor's office. And they are excited about we have a local, some young people here that really want to do a free for all Saturday where you put all your free stuff out at the end of your curb. And it's Scott and I discussed it briefly when the idea came up. And they do have some grants available. And so they encouraged us to apply. Originally, we were thinking maybe something in the fall. So I wanted to get that on your radar because we just made that connection. And so I'll just come chat with you.
Yeah, please do.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jesse. We'll move on to Marina Director's report. Craig Simpson.
Mayor, good evening. Really happy to see some rain out there. That's great. I feel like I've been smoking cigarettes inside of a tanning bed. Which is probably exactly how I look. I know I submitted my report is not very long, so in addition to what's on there, I guess I would just ask if you have any questions. We did have a very successful 4th of July holiday. Yeah. So any questions for me?
Successful July 4th. So the news from the Eisenhower Tunnel, of course, was that the traffic was down to 2015 levels. So how did the marina fare?
Well, I guess what I would say is when I say successful, I would say relative to what we've seen in 2026. Mostly when I say successful, I mean that everyone was safe and sound and happy and healthy. Friday was definitely way busier. It was more of a crush, where Saturday was just very, very consistent.
Steady.
Yeah. And the Tiki Bar continues to be very, very popular, which is great. They are by far setting records down there as compared to the past. It'd be very interesting to get that contrast, but they're posting, even in June, they're posting numbers that I've never seen before.
Looks great. They're operating awesomely, and I think it's phenomenal.
Yeah. So, you know, that's a jewel. I mean, our reservations are down, but we do have a lot of walk-ins. I think it's very weather dependent. I think the smoke is probably not helping. Hopefully this rain will kind of knock it down a little bit. But other than that, the crew's doing great. Everyone's happy and healthy, and we're doing well. Anything else?
I appreciate all you do.
Hey, I'm up for it. You got it. I appreciate being able to do it.
Any other comments from council?
All good. Thank you.
We'll move on to senior planners report with Ned West.
it's great to see that rain out there.
Yeah.
Just a quick note, this is an off-cycle report for me. I'm normally doing the third meeting for my report. However, I wanted to kind of give you a supplemental. And as busy as I am, if you guys want me to start reporting every 2 weeks, I can consider that. So please let me know. We did end up canceling and postponing the scheduled public hearing that was for the July 1st Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. As we are getting closer to kind of publication deadline for the packet, the developer who has submitted an application for a PUD requested a little more time. They basically said, we want to put our best foot forward. We want to get this right and not be hurried. And so I felt that was fine. I was waiting for materials from them, and it was really going to pinch my ability to get the packet published in time as well. So we have postponed that hearing to August 5th, 2026. Because we had already done the legal notice and to avoid complications, we just went ahead and canceled that meeting entirely, as opposed to another approach that's sometimes done is you go ahead and you open the public hearing and then you say, well, we need to continue it to the next meeting. The reason we did not do that is we wanted to be as transparent as possible and not confuse the public. So what we will do is renotice, go through the expense of sending out the mailing, getting the legal notice in the paper, and posting the site again in accordance with our requirements. So that is our intent there. We've been quite busy, both John and me, with fielding applicants and potential applicants for land use applications. A lot of smaller remodel type work, but some bigger things kind of coming around. I will let you know that the EV charging station or parking lot, excuse me, down behind the digital sign at the west entry is in progress right now. They are installing the conduit this week, and our civil package for that parking lot project is out to bid currently, and that closes, I believe, on Friday. The intent is to then bring a contract before you all on the 21st, the next meeting here, to then get somebody under contract to move forward with doing the civil work. That's the asphalt and concrete for the actual parking lot. Again, that's a 4 charger parking lot. It's a DCFC, so that's direct current fast charge. It's the kind where you get off the highway, you charge your vehicle, and you jump back on. As I had mentioned to you all before, one of my ideas was to kind of create a sign kiosk that acts as a Town of Dillon Chamber of Commerce. I'm still tossing that around. I know it didn't rise to a high level for you all, but I'm still working on what it might cost to do something like that, just to see if we want to consider it in the future. The idea is that maybe instead of jumping back on the highway, somebody has an interest to go up the hill and actually see how beautiful it is at the top. So that's kind of the idea there. We're working on the native species garden. We've had to bring in some additional plants, and now we're having something eating our plants. So we're doing our best to try to make that look better. It's something that John and I are passionate about. It's something I do at my own home, and I get tons of comments about. So I'd encourage you all to consider native landscapes. It's pretty cool. We are working with Agostina, who's a Dillon resident artist, who does the stippling art. You might recognize her artwork from the farmer's market. What we had done previously for our sign for that site was screen grabs basically off the internet. And the sign looked okay, but I think we're really going to personalize it with some local art, and it's going to look really neat. And so that sign will be in production soon. And then we'll get it installed as soon as we get it back from the sign maker. We're still working on the town center sale signs, getting those sign panels manufactured, and also coordinating updates to the median wayfinding signage on Lake Dillon Drive. Our idea there is just simple vinyl overlays to update them at a low cost to get something with better wayfinding, something that pops and looks different and stands out as, hey, this is new. I recognize that this is new. And, oh, now it says lakefront. I think that's one of Barb's things that we should have on the wayfinding. Let's do it. So that's underway. We have finished the asbestos inspection on 2 of town buildings, and we have hot samples. So more on that to come, but that indicates if we decide to move forward with anything with those buildings as far as demolition, there will be a required mediation project first. We continue to invest in housing helps projects. We're now up to probably approaching 30. I'll have to get a real tally for you next time. But we're investing in helping people with down payments on deed restricted housing. We did recently support a purchase for a home in Dillon, a single family home. So that's kind of exciting. Most of our investments have been in Dillon Valley, though we've gotten a couple of properties in Dillon itself. So we partner with Summit County at a 50% rate through that housing helps program. Continuing on with a lot of our general things, still working with Blue River Watershed Group on that wildfire ready watershed plan. We're getting close to the finalizing that plan. I think we'll probably be at final in August, and we'll bring it to you all so you're aware of what we've done there. So what we're really hoping is grant opportunities coming out of that. We're pretty excited about, which does bring up the point which I have mentioned before. We are still in conversations with the U.S. Forest Service for a much larger fuels mitigation project in our watershed, source water watershed of Straight Creek. Now, some specific updates that I know you all have been wanting to have. I have met with the superintendent at Nordstrom Rack. They are well ahead of schedule and anticipate full delivery at the end of August. And their understanding is that Nordstrom intends to open in the 1st of September. So that's a couple of months ahead of what we were anticipating previously. I've been in conversations with the owners of 103 Main Street. They do intend to finish the roof project. They did have some issues with that roofing contractor, so that project was on hold. What they have done is accomplished sealing it and repairing the roof members such that the roof doesn't collapse. And they intend to then further and complete that project. They also have a extremely interested tenant who wants to occupy the building. The tenant, in conversations with the building owner, would like to have street frontage on Lake Dillon Drive. So that brings us back to the desire for the building owner to obtain an encroachment license agreement with the town, such that they can build stairs that go up through that old retaining wall and have an outdoor patio that then accesses the building. Part of their intent there at 103 Main is to create a glass storefront on what is currently looking like the backside of a building facing Lake Dillon Drive. So that's kind of an exciting update there. The intent would be to bring that encroachment license before you all, hopefully on the 21st.
Is there a correlation between their tenant and the development across the street?
I don't have specifics. There might be. Just as a point of notification, a couple of years ago, staff and me and Mark Hellman, the utilities superintendent, were working with Sullivan Green, CV and Jarvis, a law firm, to help us develop a watershed protection ordinance. We put that on hold as some other things came up and necessitated focus elsewhere. We still feel strongly that this watershed protection ordinance has value. Our watershed is within either CDOT right-of-way or U.S. Forest Service land. So we don't have much power over those entities as far as what we can do with our watershed ordinance, but it's their users that our ordinance could have some teeth, especially, for instance, Xcel Energy. What are they doing? We need notification. For instance, when they did a big power line protection program a couple years ago, which is wonderful, we had no idea. We got sediment in the creek that impacted our water intake system. So we just need to know about it. So that's kind of what we're up to there. So a little bit of more legal cost with them through water legal. But I just wanted to let you know that we're picking that up, and hopefully we'll close it out soon. That has mostly been drafted. We're just in final edits at this point. Let's see, Partners in Energy, we have an MOU from them that I will bring forward next time. They would like to have us sign. It's very general terms. We signed one once before, actually two different ones. One for the development of the Dillon Energy Action Plan, which we did with them. And then there was a phase 2 implementation of that plan. We put the implementation on hold, again, due to some needs to focus elsewhere and a lack of community interest. We're now pushing really hard on it, and they are supporting us through Partners in Energy. So thus the MOU. They give us some money to help support us in creating collateral and things like that. They just want an agreement that says we're going to do our part to try to work on it. And finally, High Country Conservation Center, HC3. They have put together their 2027 climate and energy programs proposal. Last year, I believe we had contributed to them $7,500. That's their ask again this year. So again, that would be something I'd bring forward to you all. This ties back to the previous subject I was just speaking about, and that was the MOU for implementation of our energy action plan with Partners in Energy and Xcel. We need to do more work to push our renewable and sustainability goals. And I'm wondering if there might be consideration to put a little bit more money in the 2027 budget, but beyond the 7,500. So happy to hear your thoughts on that. And finally, if you haven't already signed up for SC alerts, please do so. I can't tell you how helpful it is to know that the dump is closed because of lightning today, but it's also going to be hugely beneficial if there's something very, very serious happening in our community. So thank you. Any questions for me?
I was like, nice to hear that we're getting the fast chargers down on an enemy. Is there any thought to putting slower chargers up in the core area so that people would have to come and stay there for a while?
Yes, we are working on a phase 2, what we're calling the phase 2 deployment of EV charging. And that is just that, the level 2 slower chargers in the town center area. We have identified 6 different sites. We've learned that some of the sites we identified, there is not enough power in the grid to support them. And we continue to work with Xcel to see what we can do. So we are definitely working on that currently. We have some grant reservation letters already awarded where we have received grant funding to help support those projects. So it's an active project that we are trying to work on. Xcel is extremely backlogged on these. In fact, we don't even have a commitment as to when we will get the transformer for our DCFC site down at an enemy. So it's just.
It's okay, it's Xcel Energy. What do you want?
Yeah.
Any other questions, council members? Thank you so much, Ned. We'll move on to our last item, agenda review. I'll turn that over to Scott.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. So this evening, consent agenda, we discussed the first reading within the consent agenda. We also will get our audit presentation this evening by Jim Hinkle. We do have a resolution for a supplemental appropriation for Habitat for Humanity. And then, of course, mayor's, manager's update, council updates. Any questions for me? Okay. Any changes or anything like that? Okay.
Thank you, Scott. That concludes the work session. We'll take 5 minutes and then reconvene.
Take 5.